Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, like we always do on this podcast, we have an exciting guest doing exciting things to make the world a better place. His name is Mike Flessy, and he is with the Libertarian Party's Second Amendment Caucus. So welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So let us get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
I'm 52 years old, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I moved out here to New Mexico back in 1994. I've been involved in the Libertarian Party and the larger movement since, about 95, 96 was, I signed up with the LP in 94, and it was, in 96 is when I read The Probability Broach by L. Neil Smith, Why Government Doesn't Work by Harry Brown, and that kind of let me know what it's all about. And I've been involved ever since. I've been state party chair, state party vice chair. I've done cable access TV, written letters to the editor. I've been around.
That's great. That's what we love to hear, Mike. We love to hear people taking action to advance alternative parties and the causes they support. So you were talking about, you read two books that were influential. I'm familiar with Harry Brown's book. I remember reading that myself. What was the name of the other one?
The Probability Broach by L. Neil Smith.
What's the premise of that book?
It's a science fiction story. I have to disclose that I'm a friend of L. Neil's. He passed away a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Basically, it's an alternate history where a Denver police detective goes sideways into another timeline. And in this timeline, basically we won back in 1776, in 1789. Yep. And the Whiskey Rebellion of 1794, instead of being stopped by George Washington, the Whiskey Rebellion marched on to Philadelphia. And, some of your listeners aren't going to like this, but they pulled the plug on the Constitution and went back to the original Articles of Confederation. And anyway, from then on, history, that timeline's history was considerably freer than our own. They landed on the moon in the 1920s, had nuclear power and working on fusion and such. And anyway, this Denver police detective there's a plot where certain people in this world who don't like it, followers of Alexander Hamilton and such, want to use nuclear weapons that they grabbed from our world to hold that world hostage. And there's a bit of action adventure kind of stuff where they get defeated. But anyway, with the Probability Broach and its sequel novels, the Nagasaki Vector and such, what they show you is that this is can not only work, but it's also can be fun too. And that was the point of why L. Neil wrote the book. And a lot of people have been brought into the movement by that book and such. Anyway, he as far as the Second Amendment Caucus, he was the one who originally came up with the idea.
Oh, he did.
Back in the 90s, I believe. And basically the idea is to not only to introduce non-libertarians to the Libertarian Party, people who are gun people who are not really fully on board with libertarianism, but also to keep reminding the Libertarian Party that the Second Amendment is a godsend of an issue for them.
Okay. Which
it really is. So anyway, it's got that kind of dual purpose. And so I'm the one who put up the Facebook page for it.
Oh, good. So do you think the Libertarian Party is not doing enough to advance the Second Amendment?
I'm not sure exactly what the Libertarian Party is doing right now. There's the infighting between the Mises Caucus and the Gary Johnson 2016 people. That may or may not be dying out. But but from one, I've been involved in the New Mexico Party for a while, and in 2016, the Gary Johnson people basically did a hostile takeover.
Oh, they did.
And they said, "Oh, we're going to run things so much better than everybody before us and such." Well, they've kind of died out to nothing. And we had to form an alternate party here in New Mexico called the Free Libertarian Party of New Mexico.
Oh, my.
That is also idling. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Huh.
But you might hear aircraft going overhead. My apartment is on the final approach path for Kirtland Air Force Base.
Interesting.
And they also have like FedEx and UPS land their planes there too.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the Libertarian Party at national or at state levels. I haven't heard of anything of what of who's planning on running for the presidential nomination.
Oh.
So I'm kind of wondering what's going on. Now, it could be that this is everybody's gearing up for the 24 election.
So
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. Kindly tell our audience how you... I'm sorry, again, so you can go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm waiting for you.
Okay, kindly tell our audience how you interpret the Second Amendment. What do you see it as suggesting, and how do you perceive it?
Well, this is, as far as the issue itself, it's all about the individual right to own and carry weapons for defense of yourself, for defense of your friends and family, your community, your nation. Basically, like Thomas Jefferson said back in the 1780s and 1790s, carry your gun with you in all your walks. And when he said that, I don't think he meant go get federal, state, and local permission slips.
Okay.
And if you want to carry it further, the right is not granted to you by the government. Okay, the reason they wrote it the way they did, it's the right pre-exists government. Okay, You just being born as a sapient, self-aware entity have the right to defend your own life.
Sure.
And what the Second Amendment is supposed to do, it's supposed to guarantee that government will not interfere in your exercise of that right. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Kind of like how the First Amendment is really all about free expression.
Yep.
And you have the right to express yourself just because you're born as a self-aware person.
Yep.
Okay, what the First Amendment says is government is not empowered to interfere in that right.
Okay.
Am I making sense?
You are. Now, you mentioned defense a couple of times when you were describing it. Does that preclude other reasons for owning firearms, or can you only do it for defense?
Well, if you're good at defending yourself and you're proficient and such, other reasons are kind of just corollary reasons. Hunting, recreation. That's nice, but the primary reason that the owning and carry weapons is held to be a right is for defensive purposes. Okay. So
now, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But as far as like the recreational stuff, there's competitions where you can train in the self-defense tactics and techniques. There's if you're in certain parts of the Northwest, you have grizzly bears to worry about. So you're not only defending yourself against criminals and tyranny, but you're also, you might have some 800-pound grizzly bear or mountain lion coming after you, and so 911 isn't going to work much for you there.
Sure.
But yeah, and there's also people that collect firearms.
Yes.
That's a corollary thing, but but yeah, there's also, and plus, a lot of the people get into it because they appreciate the mechanics of it.
Okay.
How the machining and the physics of how they operate and the ballistics and, the technology involved. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons why people get into firearms, and it's kind of interesting, though. Okay, it's not just about guns. Okay? In a lot of the states where where the politicians, the political types are anti-gun, they don't want you and I having weapons, they're also against you and I having other weapons. Pepper spray, tasers, stun guns, batons. California and Chicago tried to outlaw civilian possession of body armor. Okay, because, we don't know if you're going to be a criminal and use this stuff. That's their line. There was a case in Massachusetts, Caetano versus Massachusetts, where somebody used a stun gun to run off a bad guy. And it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said Massachusetts law against civilian possession of stun guns is unconstitutional. So, it's not about guns per se. It's about, you having the right to defend your own life and the lives of people around you and defend property. And to do that, you have to have the best available tools to do it.
Okay.
So
what
anyway,
about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Since you're emphasizing the defense part, I'm thinking about all the people that will say, then that'll make them want to limit the weapons you can use, because they'll say some weapons they're not for defense, they're to kill, they're not to defend, or they're have no defensive purposes, and then they want to limit weapons. How would you respond to that?
Well, when the founders wrote the Second Amendment, they just got done running off the basically the world's equivalent of what we are today, the United States. Okay, back then the British Empire was to the rest of the world what the United States is to the rest of the world right now.
True. And
the founding fathers ran them off. Told them, hey, this is our gig over here. You go away, and they were able to make it stick. Okay, granted, we had support from the French and Spanish military. They almost got together in 1779 and invaded England over this, but Thomas Jefferson, even Alexander Hamilton, I mean, they ran off the world superpower of the day. So, I mean, they had privately owned cannon back then. They had privately owned warships. That's like today someone like Elon Musk having his own Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. And back then, it was perfectly fine. As far as the privately owned cannon, there were people that had those up until the 1860s. And it's just, when they wrote it, they weren't concerned about, how can we make sure that only the right people have them.
Oh, interesting.
And there was a little bit, but, for example, the Coast Guard got started as the revenuers back in the 1790s, trying to keep the loyalists from bringing in weapons to overthrow the new government. But by and large, they wanted the civilian population to have military parity over the federal government.
Okay.
Meaning they have the same sort of stuff the feds had. And Federalist Paper 46 by, I think it was James Madison, he said the reason we could put up with a 25 to 30,000 man standing army is because if that army ever got out of line, there would be 3 million civilians with similar weapons and similar training that could whoop that army. And he was one of the big government guys of the day. Okay? So now it's kind of funny. A lot of people say, well, what about nukes? What about tanks? Well, in the Ukraine, the Ukrainian farmers were using the tractors to run off with Russian tanks that had been abandoned, because they ran out of fuel and the Russians just left them, and it was a conscript army. But yeah, they were okay with that. They'd take the tank home and maybe fix it up and use it on their side. And Zelensky was, when Russia invaded, they had a firearm licensing scheme, and he threw it in the trash and said, if you want to come over here and shoot at Russians, we'll give you a rifle and we'll let you go out there. And he was giving away like RPGs, rocket, anti-tank rifle rockets. He was giving machine guns. If you could carry it and you were willing to use it in defense of the Ukraine, here, have it. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, in 1989, when the Romanians overthrew the Ceausescus, they did it with military weapons that they had taken from the government forces, and they put the Ceausescus up against the wall and executed them. Joe Biden says, well, you're going to fight off F-16s and such with your rifles, and you're going to fight off tanks. Well, I don't know. The Taliban did a pretty good job of it. They left like 300,000 M4 rifles over there, a few hundred Black Hawk helicopters, M240 machine guns, the belt-fed ones. And also, okay, they say, what if somebody drives a tank up to you? Here's the new Abrams X tank that they're coming out with. What if somebody drives up to your house with that? What they seem to forget is that, okay, there's no restroom, sleeping compartment, break room, way to cook your dinner in there, no medical facilities in the tank. At some point, you have to, the driver, the gunner, the loader, the tank commander, they have to exit that vehicle. Okay?
Yeah.
And when they do that, they're vulnerable.
Okay,
It's the same thing with the F-16, the F-15. Yeah, when it's up there and when it's flying around a couple thousand feet, you're not going to be able to do anything with a rifle or pistol. But the pilot can't stay up there forever. Eventually they get tired. They have to land that plane, and when they land,
run out.
Yeah, they're vulnerable. Well, also studies have been done that say they interviewed military people. Would you be willing to fire on American civilians? It routinely comes back 70-80% no.
That's good.
Same thing with cops, especially these rural cops. They don't want any part of it. America has the world's largest supply of precision machine tools, and so I once saw a comment posted by a machinist on an article about this stuff, and he says, all I need is time and metal. I can make anything I want. Go ahead and write your bands and such. We also have the world's largest supply of existing weapons, somewhere between 400 million to a billion, depending on who you ask. Look at the cartels. They bring people and drugs through the southern border anytime they want. Outlawing firearms is going to give them another commodity to invest in and bring across. They talk, the anti-gun people talk about banning this, banning that, and this was all before, and then we have the 3D printed guns that you can make. So but at the same time, we have to keep reminding people of this stuff. That's why the LSAC exists, to introduce libertarianism to the gun people who are kind of sitting on the fence. The hostile people, you're never really going to convince them. But the people who are sitting on the fence, hey, maybe they'll work with us on other stuff too.
There you go.
At the same time, we have people in the LP that, think the Second Amendment isn't a big deal and we can just blow it off. The 2016 vice presidential candidate, for example, the less I hear or see from that one, the better.
Mm.
But yeah, we're, so anyway, we're here in New Mexico, we're waiting for the LP to kind of figure out what they want to do. And we had an organizing convention back in March, and we elected Karen Bedoni, who was the 22 gubernatorial candidate, and she won the election for state chair. And then she got sick. She had some kind of medical problem, so then she had to step down a couple of months later. So now we're waiting to see when we can have another chair election. So we're kind of, and we also have this possible legal battle with the Gary Johnson people, and over who has the right to use the name and such, and who has the right to ballot access, and but in the meantime, we're just kind of, right now is an off year in New Mexico, so there's not much. There's municipal elections going on, which not really much activity there. So, but I don't know. So we're kind of in wait and see mode right now. So, what kind of questions do you have?
How do you evaluate the state of gun rights right now? I take it you feel they're inadequate right now?
They're inadequate, but they're improving. And you've seen the stories about Clarence Thomas and such, how, they want to get rid of him because they're calling him corrupt and such. As far as I'm concerned, I wish he'd stay on the bench 1,000 years.
Oh my.
After New York versus New York State Rifle Pistol Association versus Bruin, the Bruin case. He didn't just knock it out of the park. That ball's going to be flying past the Voyager 1, Voyager 2 soon. I mean, the anti-gun people are just absolutely apoplectic about it, and they're, oh my God, we're gonna see blood in the streets, and except that doesn't actually happen in real life. Every time one of their gun bans or whatever goes away, they're predicting, carnage all over the place, like the Purge movie, where there's just, people just killing each other right and left. Except that never actually happens. Okay? You're over in Texas. You have gun shows, right?
Yeah.
Where you go in and they have all kind of people selling guns, selling ammunition, selling knives, all kind of stuff.
Sure.
And they kind of shut them down here because our state and our governor and our mayor here are anti-gun. But over there, I've been to a few of them here in New Mexico before that. And there, you don't see anybody getting shot in those. If the anti-gun people were anywhere close to being in the ballpark, I mean, there'd be nothing but people getting shot in those, but it never happens.
Yeah.
So.
I've read about people, you saying the school shootings are blown out of proportion because it's a very small cause of death in the United States, whereas there's other things that are many, many times more. So that's often used for anti-gun.
Well, I mean, you have more people die by drowning in the bathtub and car accidents, and dying in swimming pools and stuff like that. And so why is there no hue and cry to outlaw those? I mean, but and also a lot of these places where these things happen, they have signs on the doors and the windows and the parking lots. No weapons allowed on the property. So, when somebody's looking to come in and kill a bunch of people, what, you mean they don't take their gun back out to the car after they see the sign? No, they keep on going because they ignore the sign. The criminals have found the massive loophole in all these different proposals called breaking the law.
Huh.
So, I believe it was L. Neal who first coined the phrase victim disarmament.
Oh, okay.
Well, these people claim it's all about gun safety and gun law, gun control, and real gun safety is what the NRA teaches you on the shooting range. The 4 safety rules, the fundamentals of marksmanship, when knowing what's a proper target. Okay?
Okay.
What these people are calling for is what L. Neal calls victim disarmament, and basically, the people who are most likely to be disarmed are the victims of crime and terrorism and such. Okay, because the criminals, they want to get a weapon, they go get a weapon. They do it over in the UK, in Australia. The biker gangs are making their own weapons, and this is without 3D printing. They just make them. There's a Facebook page where the guy he has pictures of all these homemade weapons that are confiscated by law enforcement in Brazil and the Philippines. And, I mean, they don't look, they're not pretty, but I imagine they work.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it's, criminals don't obey the law. I mean, if they're willing to just kill a bunch of people for laughs, they're not going to bother obeying that little sticker on the window that says no weapons allowed in the building.
True.
So
since you were mentioning the NRA's courses, do you think there should be mandatory courses to get a license, or what do you feel about that?
Well, that would be my deviation from libertarian orthodoxy.
Okay.
Basically, if we're going to have public schools, make them actually teach something worthwhile. So like a graduation requirement should be firearms safety and proficiency to graduate from high school.
That works. That's a good idea.
We're in fact, I've taken the level 3 security course here in New Mexico. I've been in the security profession for a while. Level 1, you're unarmed. Okay, level 2, you have like the pepper spray, the baton. If you go for additional training, you can get a taser. Level 3 is where they train you on how to use a pistol. And the qualification course, you start out at 25 yards, and you do standing, and then you go kneeling, and then you do prone, and then you come into 15 yards, and then you go to 10 yards, and then 7 and 5 and 3, and you have to get so many. When it's all done, you have to get, out of 100 shots you fired, you have to have 80 of them on the target. Okay, and it's not as easy as you would think. Sure. And make something like that a requirement to graduate from high school.
Wow.
And also. Like how to properly use a pocket knife, and how to use a knife, like the Boy Scouts used to teach. They called it totem chip. Okay, or totem chip, I think it was pronounced. But yeah, they teach you, the way to use a knife safely without slicing your hand open. Something like that should be a graduation requirement. We're basically raising a generation to be stupid and scared, and so anyway. But let's make those requirements to graduate from high school.
Wow, that is a new idea. I've never heard anything like that.
And I mean, as far as mandatory training requirements, I mean, you should get that training from your high school, from your parents, from have the cops do something worthwhile and have them go into schools and teach this stuff. And maybe their own marksmanship will get better too.
There you go.
Maybe have some kind of martial arts curriculum in schools too, so that way, you don't have kids, the bullies and such. When they know you're proficient and you're willing to stand up to them, they're not going to do as much. What's the word I'm looking for? Instead of trying to eliminate the threat, harden the targets. Okay? I believe it was Coley Noir who's in Texas, the black guy with does the Second Amendment YouTube channels. He was saying if you're going to have these no guns rules on your buildings and such, actually enforce it. Have somebody there doing pat downs and metal detectors. But even better would be to train the potential victims on how to handle themselves when this sort of thing happens, and not just cower under the desk, but so that they can actually defend themselves and take action to defend themselves.
Sure.
So that would be my divergence from libertarian orthodoxy. I can go even further. El Neil wrote a graphic novel back in the 90s, I believe it was, called Roswell, Texas, where it's an alternate history where in the state of Texas goes independent, and they have a rule where you must be armed at all times, basically, like Kennesaw Mountain, Georgia is in this world. And if you want to go without, then you have to go through all the background checks and get photographed and fingerprinted to make sure you're not a complete whack job.
Interesting. So, that's an interesting twist.
But yeah, that's I think that's pretty much what I got on this issue here.
Okay, that's good. That's good information. Interesting perspective. So, how can our audience support the Second Amendment Caucus?
I don't have a donation link set up right now, and I haven't gone through all the federal and state paperwork that's, as far as campaign finance and such that's required. You have to form a PAC and all this stuff. Basically just spread the word about what it's about.
Okay. So they can visit your page and share that?
Yes. I will say that Facebook has been incredibly difficult to work with the past few months.
Oh no.
Where you have to switch into your page and from your profile to your page and all this happy nonsense.
Okay.
Because I have 20 some different pages.
Oh yeah.
And to use each one of them, you have to switch into the page, and it's a headache. They're really asking for someone to put out a better way to do things and take all their business away.
Yeah.
So I've seen a couple that may be on the road to doing that, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
So. But,
all right. So I can visit your Facebook page. Yes,
the Facebook page. Hold on a second. If you go to lneilsmith.org/libertare, like libertarian without the IAN on the end, .html, and that's the original page that El Neil put up.
Wait, it's lneil.org?
lneilsmith.org, and just you go to the Lever Action Essays part of it and scroll down and you'll see it.
Okay.
And I should probably post a link to it on the page.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Okay, I'm drawing a blank now.
It's okay.
So what else you got?
That's good. We wanted to make sure our audience can reach you or through the page. Is there if they want to? Since you're talking about the Libertarian Party of Nevada, and you were talking about how you perceive it to be a big mess. So I don't know if we want to refer people to the party to join.
Well, I'm not in Nevada. I'm in New Mexico.
New Mexico. I'm sorry. Okay. So
let me just give the two websites of the two organizations, and there's the There's the Gary Johnson bunch at lpnm.us.
U.S., okay.
Okay, then there's the other bunch at the Free Libertarian Party of New Mexico at flpnm.org. And, just go to them, take a look at them. Some of them might be in flux right now because of the legal situation, but I'm not sure what's going on there. Just take a look at the websites and, make up your own mind. I mean, that's what we're all about anyway, right?
Yes. Yep. Sounds good.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, that was good stuff, Mike. We thank you for sharing that, and we wish you and the caucus all the best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Of course. Take care, and we wish you the best in everything you do in life.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay, bye.